Freshwater resources. I think everyone knows the importance of water, that all living things require water, and that in fact your body is made up largely of water. If we look at the Earth's surface from space, we see there is a vast amount of water, but that's a bit misleading, because only about 0.77% of that water is accessible fresh water, and thus water available for human use. The hydrological cycle is the term used to describe the natural cycle by which water circulates around the planet. Water from the oceans is heated by the sun and evaporates into the atmosphere. The water in the atmosphere will eventually condense and fall back to the Earth's surface as precipitation. Precipitation may occur over the oceans, over landforms, over bodies of water such as lakes, ponds, and streams. The water that falls into lakes and waterways will slowly make its way back to the ocean. Some of the water, of course, will evaporate from the waterway surfaces and directly re-enter the atmosphere. Precipitation may also fall on the land. If the land is bare and void of significant vegetation, this water may either run off into waterways or soak directly into the ground. If vegetation is present, some of the water will be intercepted by that vegetation. The rest will either soak into the soil or run off into nearby waterways. Precipitation that enters the ground may be taken up by plants and ultimately be released into the atmosphere by transpiration. Other water within the soil will continue to percolate deeper into the ground until it is stopped by an impervious material such as bedrock. At this point, the water will tend to accumulate and form underground aquifers. I'll say more about that in a moment. Water in the ground, known as groundwater, will eventually return to the surface or flow to the oceans or waterways to re-enter the hydrologic cycle. So we have this continuous cycle of water from water surfaces evaporating into the ocean, condensing, and falling back to the Earth's surface. Surface water is that water that's found in streams, lakes, rivers, etc. Runoff is the major way by which surface water is replenished. Watersheds are those large geographic areas of land drained by a network of rivers and streams. Groundwater is that water that's found beneath the Earth's surface. Trapped in porous materials and blocked by bedrock, this water tends to accumulate in underground areas known as aquifers. Groundwater is usually considered to be vulnerable to pollution because water enters and exits the aquifer very slowly. So, if that water becomes contaminated, it takes a very long time for the pollution to be flushed out of the aquifer and the aquifer to be usable again. Human use of water falls into two categories: consumptive and non-consumptive use. Consumptive use is that in which the water is not returned to its source. For example, in irrigation, water is taken from a waterway and placed on a field. It's not returned to that waterway. That's a consumptive use. Non-consumptive use is when the water is returned to its source to be used again, over and over. An example might be a power plant in which the water is taken from a waterway, used for cooling purposes within the plant, and then returned to that same waterway. That's non-consumptive. Be aware, though, that non-consumptive use may result in water pollution or degradation because we may have added contaminants or something to that water as we return it to the waterway. When we look at worldwide water use, we see that the most popular use of water is for agriculture. There is an exception to that, as you can see here in North America, where industry edges out agriculture. But worldwide and in the rest of the developing world, we see agriculture as the #1 use of water. Water is a very valuable resource, and we need to use it wisely.